So today is June the 2nd. All across the world, Juneteenth flag raising ceremony are happening at high noon from sea to shining sea and all points in between. So the idea that when the United States was founded, people of African descent were enslaved. We were 3/5 of a human being for somebody else's empowerment. We were not human beings in the eyes of the United States of America. And so Juneteenth, what it represents is a milestone date where people of African descent were given a gun to fight for their freedom. Over 40,000 people of African descent were what's called U.S. colored troops and fought, bled, and died for us to be free. And that was 160 years ago, where on Galveston Island, the last Confederate port, because of a lot of things that happened, storms and the end of the Civil War, 4 years of contentious fighting, General Granger arrives there as the commander of the Texas Army to seal the border, confiscate the cotton, and go plantation to plantation, free your people that were enslaved. And these weren't the last enslaved people, but this was the last of the enslaved people in the states that were in rebellion. The other 4 states that were slave states, people were still enslaved until the 13th Amendment. And that was December of 1865. And quiet as it kept, slavery is still going on today. The 13th Amendment says you're not a slave, there's no more slavery, unless that clause in the 13th Amendment, you've been convicted of a crime. So if you are incarcerated today, you are technically a slave. You eat out of a little slit, you got to announce your slave number every morning or when they say announce it, and you are technically a slave in the United States today. But chattel slavery is over. And what does that mean? Chattel slavery. You're not a human being. You're like a cow or an ox or a piece of crop in the field, corn. You are a commodity. And that's the importance of this flag. It's symbolic of a lot of things, of a new freedom on the horizon. Because you had red states and blue states, you still got that today. And quiet as it kept, some of the things that we fought, bled, and died for are being taken away because we're not on the job today forming a more perfect union. We fly the red, black, and green on Juneteenth because we don't understand the significance. You can't get to 1920 and Marcus Garvey until you cross over to being a human being on Juneteenth. And here we are in the seat of authority for the great state of California, the city of Sacramento, 175-year anniversary this year, and nobody wants to talk about the slavery and auction blocks 6 blocks away. The slavery that happened right here in Sacramento. And Juneteenth is not a holiday here. Why? There's a lot of reasons why. The major reason why is because people don't want it to be a holiday. They want something else. So the 25 years of the modern Juneteenth movement means nothing in the city of Sacramento, in the state of California. It's not a holiday here. It's a federal holiday, it's a county holiday, but not in the city of Sacramento and not in the great state of California at the state capitol. So it makes no sense to be running around in Arizona, running around in Denver, Colorado, running around in Arizona, running around in Washington. In my hometown where I was born, Juneteenth is not a holiday. So I look real stupid, with my colleagues around the country and being cantankerous as I am, and we can't get it done in the town that I was born in. So I take responsibility for that, but each and every one of us has a role to play in this. It's not just Michael Harris walking in the door. Everybody know I ain't scared. When we were in Washington, D.C., talking to some very difficult men, primarily, and some women, who choose for us to go back into slavery today if they had the choice. And not enough of us are willing to stand up and do that. But we have the people here that are today, I call them the amen crowd, right? People that have been doing this work for a long time. Gary Simon, long before he became Sacramento Juneteenth, he was doing this work. Rick, I can't even remember, he's been doing organizing black folks long before the turn of the century, about, maybe 40 years ago. He's been organizing events, writing newspapers, empowering black folks. But there's not enough of us that are willing to pick up the banner and fly the Juneteenth flag and articulate the blood that was shed for us to be free. 40,000 colored troops, 1,918 left California, freedom, quasi, and went back and fought and died for us to be free. Over 1 million people died in the Civil War, 1 million plus that we know of. Death, starvation, and just getting shot upside the head with a bullet. That's what happened in war. But like I said, all across the nation, people are celebrating, raising this flag, and we just have to do better in the great state of California. So I'm gonna stop there and ask y'all to come on up, and Rick and Gary and the sisters, if y'all got anything to say, we want to say it in the mic. And whose office you work with?
Councilman Roger Dickinson.
That's
Oh, my brother. What is your name?
I just called her down.
Okay, so this is how it goes. Juneteenth is not a black-only holiday anymore. It's a federal holiday. It has the same statute as Christmas, Thanksgiving. In the United States Congress, the bill was passed June 2021. So we don't have to run around asking permission to do this, to celebrate our holiday. But it's a federal holiday, it's a county holiday, soon it'll be a city holiday, and soon every county, 58 counties and 100 cities with 100,000 people. That's a lot of work to do. And we go all across the state carrying this Juneteenth flag and telling the story. But it's gonna take more than just one or two people doing it. So Gary, you want to come up and say anything on the camera?
Yeah.
And then,
first of all, my name is Gary Simon. I am the Executive Director of Sacramento Juneteenth Incorporated. And we've been producing Juneteenth here in Sacramento for the last 22 years in partnership with Michael. Michael has been moving on the fringes, but Michael moves the needle. Like he says, he's not afraid. So Mike walks into the room and just let him have it, which is what we need. Again, I commend you, Michael, carrying that flag, carrying this flag, and all of the other things that you do relative to Negro Bar. Michael was responsible for getting the William Leidensdorf sign up on Highway 50 that you've probably driven by. But I remember when you were fighting that fight, the unmarked grave sites of the African Americans that died in Negro Bar, near Negro Bar. I think that the term on the gravestone was the headstone. So Michael fought that fight with state parks to get that corrected, to get those brothers and sisters' names on those headstones. So Michael, we commend you for what you're doing and carrying the flag, man, and literally as well as figuratively. Thank you.
Well, my name is Dr. Rick Warren, and I too want to commend Michael, and I also want to commend Gary Simon for what they have done to continue to carry the Juneteenth mantle here in Sacramento. You know, I started doing Juneteenth in Stockton years ago, and in the Bay Area, some other cities over 35 years ago myself, and so I understand the importance of what it means to have a Juneteenth and what it stands for our community and our culture. So Michael's always been at the forefront of that. He continues to be a fighter for justice, and on this journey to justice, it's important that we all band together to support him and support any Juneteenth that you see out there, as we all work together to make sure that our history is not erased or eradicated. So thank you, Michael, and let's get this flag up here, and let's make this a holiday here in Sacramento.
That's right.
I know they just did it in Alabama, they can sure do it here.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you know, we're talking and it's informal. We have a number of Juneteenth events. It's really the whole month.
Right. Juneteenth
It's-
month.
it's
First
been
city
Black
doing Juneteenth month.
Music Month, and so the Juneteenth music, Dr. Ron Myers gave his life for Juneteenth, went state to state. Reverend Dr. Ronald Myers, and before him it was Lula Briggs Galloway and John Thompson and some of the people Gary met,
Trudy Coleman.
Dr. Trudy Coleman. These are the shoulders that I stand on carrying the baton, and there's many, many, many others. It is a national Juneteenth movement, and in the state of California, I've been in those dark back rooms and figuring out how we can get legislation passed in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
In the state capitol, we're in the rooms. It's not a black holiday. And so when you limit yourself to just talking to black people and you are in the seat of authority, you're never going to win. Because you don't have 50 plus 1 to get anything passed. So you have to walk across the aisle and talk to some good old boys and girls that have R at the end of their name. You have to talk to some people with a D in the back of their name that really sometimes don't like you, but they are political, and so they will move the political bar when it's expedient. So again, absent numbers, absent calls, absent concern by the community on something that's already been done at the federal level. To jump over Juneteenth and holler reparations is not intelligent, because you are missing the primary source documentation that reparative justice is based upon. You're not going to get any justice in the seat of authority without articulating well the harm that was done to you. We don't need any studies, right? But you need written documentation introduced at the table. And so the staff here at the city, it has been working diligently, but it's not written where the people can see it. And we talked with the mayor earlier, talked with members of the city council. It's underway, but it hasn't been done. And so today, as I said, when you go home or when you look right now on your phone and see where Juneteenth flag raising ceremonies, you see mayors and governors and people that are in seats of authority raising this flag and celebrating Juneteenth. Not yet in the city of Sacramento, and not yet for the great state of California, the fourth largest economic power on earth. We can't acknowledge the slavery that happened here, and we're still operating on AB 1749 that happened in 2002. So our governor will issue a proclamation for a day of observance, once again based upon 2002 law, ignoring the Title V federal holiday, ignoring what, as somebody said earlier, what the great state of Alabama, the capital of the Confederacy, can figure out how to honor Juneteenth and tell the story and talk about what actually happened during slavery. But here in the city of Sacramento, again, 6 miles from here was slavery auction blocks. And I understand it's traumatic, and I understand people get triggered and don't want to hear about bid them in on a slave auction block, but that's what happened. And so we have to recognize that prior to going forward doing anything else. So I'm gonna stop there, and we're gonna go inside and get cool. No, I'm kidding. That's all I have.